Now, when it comes to the more traditional style action cameras, this is what the AcePro is going up against. Then when I saw the AcePro, I was like, oh man, what is Insta360 going to do to compete against the Action 4 as well as the GoPro Hero 12? And there's a bunch of new features on this camera that these two don't offer. So in this video, let's go through all the things you're gonna wanna know about the new Insta360 AcePro. And I will have a separate longer form video comparison between these three cameras right here. So if you guys don't wanna miss that, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. With that said, let's just jump right into it, talk about the AcePro. And when it comes down to form factor and design, it actually looks very similar to the other action cameras on the market, the GoPro as well as the Action 4. And the texture and feel of the camera is actually kind of like a merge of both of these. It has the middle here, has a texture very much like the Action does. And then the edges and outer part actually have that rubbery feel like the GoPro. Now when it comes to weight of these three cameras, the AcePro comes in at 180 grams. The GoPro Hero 12 comes in at 154 grams, and the Action 4 comes in at 145 grams. And then putting them side by side, the AcePro is a little bit bigger of the three. The Action 4 is the smallest, then the GoPro, and then we have the AcePro. And one of the reasons why it's a little bit bigger than the other two is because we have this, a 2.4-inch flip up touchscreen that's actually built into the camera. Now I know GoPro has something similar to it, but you have to actually purchase the mod for that for it to work. And also Insta360, this isn't their first time they've done it. If you guys know about the Go 3, they have this right here, which is the Go 3 camera, which goes into the pod, and then you are now able to flip this up. Now first, when I saw this flip screen, I was like, I've seen it before. I don't know how much I'm really gonna use it, but then when you actually do start using it in the field, when you mount your camera in certain places, which we'll talk about, you actually use this a lot because of the fact you can tilt and angle the screen in multiple directions. Both these cameras do have a 1/1.3-inch sensor. The one difference here with the AcePro is that this camera is co-engineered with Leica. When comparing the sensor to the GoPro does have a 1/1.9-inch CMOS sensor, which is a little bit smaller than these two right here. And with that larger sensor on these cameras, you are able to capture a little bit better in low light scenarios, as well as dynamic range. The pure video mode has a new chip and AI denoising built into it. Now, as far as video resolution, we have all the ones you would expect it to have, going up from 4K 24 to 60 to 100, all the way up to 4K 120. And if you're shooting something like 4K 30 and below, you will automatically be shooting in HDR mode on the AcePro. When it comes down to photos, we actually do have 48 megapixel photos out of the AcePro. We have 27 megapixels coming out of the GoPro and 10 megapixels coming out of the Action 4. Next, we'll talk about stabilization, and Insta360 has actually been well known to have really good stabilization on the cameras. They call their stabilization flow state. The GoPro 12 have what they call Hyper Smooth 6.0, and DJI has what they call Rock Steady. So when it comes down to stabilization, putting these all side by side again, it was pretty difficult to say that there's one camera that's way better than the other. Now when it comes down to field of view, the AcePro does have a few different options. You have the Action mode, which gives you the widest field of view. It'd be comparable, I'd say, just a few degrees less than the Action 4. Action 4 has that 155 degree field of view. The AcePro, I'd probably say just a slightly less field of view. And of course, we also have the horizon lock. So if your camera is moving up to a certain amount of degrees, it will actually still maintain that horizon. Next, we'll talk about color profiles, and the AcePro actually has a bunch of different ones. It doesn't have a log profile like these cameras do, but at least it does have a flat. The one that I did see on here is that they actually do have a bunch of different presets. So if you aren't sure which one to use, they have a bunch of different ones for biking, urban environments, snow, as well as night and ocean shots. So at least they have a bunch of other options for you when it comes down to color profiles. Next, I want to jump back to one of the features I talked about earlier, and that is this, the 2.4-inch touchscreen, very similar to what we had here on the pod on the Go 3. Of course, much bigger touchscreen than the pod. Now, while this was a really cool feature of the Go 3 to have the pod, I didn't use the pod as much because I wanted to mostly just use the camera alone, because this is the reason why you buy this camera, is that it is tiny. Now, of course, one of the main reasons why it's beneficial, you have a huge screen to look at when you are out there vlogging. But I think the one thing I really liked about having a flip screen is that when I was out there shooting, for instance, when I was using this handle here, and now I'm able to tilt my camera up and see my screen, where normally if your camera was down like this, you wouldn't be able to see your screen from up top. So if you are trying to track a skater or something, just any low angle, you wouldn't necessarily be able to see your screen. Where now I can hold the camera down, I can pop this up, and I can actually see what the camera sees even at a really low angle. And also when I hooked it up to the inside of my car, I'm able to now flip the screen around to see myself here, just to make sure that my angle is nice and straight. And the next feature we have is this right here, a magnetic clip mount, very similar to what we've had on the Action 4 from DJI, as well as I've actually used the GoPro one. I bought the Ulanzi one, which makes it compatible with the DJI mounts. But here on the AcePro, we have another custom magnet clip mount, which actually uses 4 hooks here on the top, as well as a magnet, which clips just like that, clicks nice and loud. And of course, you're able to adjust and have a nice secure camera. And Insta360 has a separate mount which you can get, and I actually really like this one because you can hook it up here on top, it clicks right in. But not just that, you have a lock. And this is something that I hope all of the other companies, I hope DJI adopts it. Having a lock here on the very front just gives you that extra peace of mind that your camera won't go anywhere. Even when you're using the magnets and the clip, I really like the fact that they have this little additional lock right on the front, which means I can't accidentally press it and pop it off until I unlock it. And there you go. Now, of course, being an action camera, the one thing I do like is that even with the flip screen, it is still waterproof up to 10 meters. That was something that was not doable here with the pod. Yeah, this was waterproof. This camera alone is waterproof, but when you put it into the pod, this was not waterproof. So when it comes to waterproofing, 10 meters depth rated for the AcePro, 10 meters rated for the GoPro Hero 12, as well as 18 meters on the Action 4. Now, when it comes down to user experience and user interface, I'm actually pretty impressed with how easy the AcePro is to use. And there's actually a few features on here that I'm surprised that DJI still hasn't adopted, and I've talked about it in some of my previous videos. The one thing I do like on the AcePro is that if you wanted to zoom, which they call clarity zoom, there's actually a zoom icon. You just press it and it automatically punches in. Next, I want to talk about some features on the AcePro that I think are just really smart to use and smart to have on an action camera because it does save you a lot of time in post-processing. The first feature we have is called AI highlights. And to activate AI highlights, all you do is swipe down. There's an icon here where you turn it on or off. Right now it's on. What AI highlights does is it actually picks out certain parts of your video and highlights it in your timeline. And once the AI highlights all of those action points in your video, you could go back into the video, look at your timeline, and determine, do I want to export out those highlighted clips as a standalone shorter clip? Do I want to export out those highlights as a combined single clip? And on top of that, you can go back and manually select which parts of the video you like. So for instance, if you're out there filming, like sometimes I'll film a basketball game and I don't want to film the entire game. I'm only going to want to go through and save the parts where my son's in the video. And I can determine what I want to do with it now. Do I just want to export out those shorter clips, the one with my kid in it, so that I don't have to waste all of the memory, all the storage on my camera? Another feature we'll talk about, which again is another kind of cool feature to use that some of the other cameras don't do, but you can actually do pause recording while you're shooting. You can just record, and then if you want to stop, hit pause, and then unpause, and then when you're done, you just hit either the record button or there's actually a stop button here on the side. Pausing it makes it a little bit easier, and then once you're done, it'll then save it as a standalone clip, a single clip, instead of having a bunch of separate ones. Next feature I saw, which is pretty cool, is the ability to start recording, and then if you don't like that clip, you can actually stop recording and auto delete it just by holding down the record button. Instead of just hitting stop and saving it to your camera roll, what you actually can do is just press and hold it, and it'll go and cancel the recording. So you don't save it, it doesn't save to your card, you don't have to go back into your preview and then delete it manually that way. If you knew it was a bad take, press and hold that record button, it'll automatically delete that recorded clip. Next issue we have is the ability to download your footage in the background. Now, some of the other action cameras and their apps, they don't allow you to leave the app while you're downloading or else it'll error or fail. But here, you're able to now have the app start downloading your footage. It's actually showing you the progress right now. Get out of the app, I can go back in and use other apps. So I can check my Gmail, check all the other stuff. And I can see the indicator here on the very back that the downloads are still occurring. And there you go. Now the downloads are done and I just got a notification at the top. But really cool feature because a lot of times when you want to download, you don't want to always have to be able to just sit there and have the app open the entire time. Here, you can actually do it in the background. Another couple of features we have is gesture and voice control. So right now we are not recording, but if I hold it out and I put my hand up, there you go. It's now starting to record. And if I wanted to stop, put my hand back up and stops recording. Now, the one thing I did notice that gesture control and voice control both can't be on at the same time. Not sure why. I would assume it's not that big of a deal. Now, if I hold this out here and I say, take a photo, capturing, taking a photo. And of course, if I say, start recording, there you go. We are recording video. Next feature I like on the AcePro that the other ones don't have is called metering mode. And the reason why I like it is because it does have this little highlight. Kind of like, it's almost like, it feels like it's tracking, but it's not really tracking you. It's just letting you know that you are being tracked, or the camera is prioritizing either your face or it's prioritizing the entire scene. But I like the fact that if you put it to face priority, it shows you a little box around your face. So at least you know that when you're out there vlogging, you know that the camera is metering for your face first. Now, when it comes down to charging the battery, the one thing I do like is that it does have a fast charge option. That's one thing that GoPro does not have. They don't have a fast charge option, so GoPro batteries take a very long time. The Action 4 does have a fast charge option, and here on the AcePro, we also have that. You're able to charge up to 80% in about 22 minutes, and for a full charge, it'll take you about 46 minutes. Next, let's talk about overheating, and this has always been an issue with action cameras in general. The great thing is that the AcePro did not overheat when I was out there using it, and doing that standard table test as far as battery goes, the GoPro did not last that long. It actually lasted about 51 minutes before it actually overheated and then turned off. Then it went over to the AcePro. This camera was able to shoot for about 82 minutes straight through, no overheating. The only thing that it stopped is because the battery exhausted at that point. But at least it wasn't from overheating. And then the Action 4 did the best. This camera kept going for up to 101 minutes before it stopped. Now, for all you motorcycle and bike riders, if you wanted to preview your screen, so if you had this possibly mounted on your helmet, back of your bike or something like that, you are now able to hook up a GPS screen, little preview monitor. You can preview, you can use it to stop, start recording, and of course you can add GPS to it. So you can hook this up to your handlebars or put it onto your wrist, kind of like a watch, but really cool option, nice accessory to have. All right, so when we're talking about internal audio, there's actually a few different settings for it. There's stereo, there's wind reduction, and then there's directional. Right now we are in stereo mode, so how does the audio sound? Not much wind happening right now. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, switch it over to wind reduction, and I'm getting some gusts of wind here, so I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear that on the camera, but how does the audio sound? Wind reduction mode set on the AcePro. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the final option is directional. Now, I'm assuming this will be a really good one for vlogging. If it is directional forward, I'm assuming it's going to be using that front microphone here. So how does the audio sound? Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Another option that Insta360 offers is that you are able to pair your camera with something like this, Bluetooth AirPods. So if you wanted to have external audio and you didn't have something like another mic system, you can still use your AirPods to get audio over to your Insta360. Now, if you wanted to add some external audio to your AcePro, you're gonna need to pick up something like this, which is their USB-C adapter to 3.5. You would have to plug that into the side of the camera here. And they also sell this accessory, which is pretty cool. It's a cold shoe mount that actually attaches to their quick release plate. And there you go. You have a little vlog set up here, a lot better audio coming from these microphones. As far as compact goes, this is probably one of the best setups you'll have here, whether you use the DJI mic or the Rode. Nice and small, slim, compact, and then of course you have a wireless one versus a shotgun one. We have free frame video, and this mode's really good if you wanted to have a shot that you might want to change the aspect ratio later. So if you wanted to shoot something and you're like, oh, I might want it in 9:16 instead of 16:9, you're gonna want to shoot in that free frame video mode. We also have time shift, we have time lapse, loop recording, slow motion, star lapse, burst photo, intervals, and HDR. Also, one feature that I really like, which I believe, of course, it probably took from the DJI one, is you do have the quick switch option on the AcePro, which means if you wanted to save a bunch of presets, like I like to shoot in 4K 30, 4K 60, 4K 120. Those are the main ones I normally will shoot at, and some of them have different color profiles on them. you're able to save that as a preset here at the very top. And with this button here, which is a power button, but it's also a quick switch button, you can actually toggle through video, photo, time lapse, and then the custom ones that you made. So you are able to use that now as a preset and have that button as a quick switch. Also within the Insta360 app, you are able to do a bunch of fun features like AI warp, which allows you to take your footage and add a bunch of cool AI effects to either the whole clip or parts of your clips. Next feature we have is time capture, which allows you to set a specific time that you want your action camera to turn on, start recording, and determine which mode you want to shoot in. Do you want to shoot a video? Do you want to shoot a photo? You are able to set that up so that if you needed to put this out somewhere outdoors and you don't necessarily want to manually go to the camera, you can set this up, set the time you want it to shoot, what type of shot you want to get, and it'll automatically run. Now, when it comes to the price of the AcePro, this comes in at $449. That's gonna come with, of course, this one right here, the AcePro camera. It'll come with the standard magnet clip mount, as well as this flexing mount right here, battery, and a USB-C to USB-C cable. Now, those were all the features of the new Insta360 AcePro. Now, what's my final conclusion on this action camera? When it comes down to video quality and stabilization, I think it's a very, very solid first pass at this action camera. Insta360 is not new to the game. They have a ton of other cameras. Now, as far as some of the things you might want to think about before purchasing the camera, and as much as I really like the screen, it's something that you have to also consider when you're out there, and depending on how you're going to use the camera, you have more moving parts. You have things that also might take a beating. So while I find it really useful in certain circumstances and use cases, sometimes having things built into the camera, less moving parts, less things to worry about, can be a bigger benefit than having a screen that flips up and down. So while the screen is a pro, it can also be a con depending on how you use the camera. Next is size and weight. Now it is bigger. It's the biggest out of all three of these. It weighs the most. So if you're the type to use your action camera in places like possibly an FPV drone or things like that, the weight might be a concern for you. For me, when I carry an action camera around, I normally just carry around on a really small selfie stick. So I like to keep things as small as possible. Next is battery life. Now the battery life does really well if you keep the screen off. Like I mentioned, I did a little timed one. I was able to get about 80 plus minutes shooting 4K 30, but I had all the screens off on all of the cameras. And because of the fact it is a pretty big screen, you will be consuming a little bit more power than these guys right here. And then finally, the one thing you have to think about is the price. It comes in at $449, which is about 50 bucks more than these. These come in at $399. It would have been nice if they kind of kept it $399 across the board on all these action cameras. That way you're just kind of going off of features and image quality and things like that. So you really have to determine now, is that $50 worth the flip screen option as well as some of those other AI highlight features that the AcePro offers. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm gonna have separate videos a little bit more in depth and comparisons between these cameras right here. So if you guys do wanna see those, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. And of course, if you guys got some value from this video, a big like would be much appreciated. This is also Stasio with FlytPath.com. I'll see you guys out there, possibly with the AcePro. Take care.